So, welcome back to NBA Mock Draft. We're on part 4, picks 23 to 30. And let's get into it. The Utah Jazz are going to start us off. So, what do the Utah Jazz need? I'm pretty confident in Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell. Maybe you can. They do have 3 wings. Maybe you can make an argument that they need a 4th one. But I'm pretty confident in Joe Ingles, Bogan Bogdanovic, or I think it's Bogan, I think it's Bogan Bogdanovic, and Royce O'Neal as their 3rd wing. Maybe you make an argument that they need a 4th one, and maybe you go with a stretch 4 here. But there just weren't that many great stretch 4s available at this point. I would say Jaden McDaniels would be the stretch 4 that you need, but I think he's more of a long-term project. And for a contending team, I don't really think that Jaden McDaniels would fit into their timeline. Because I think Jaden McDaniels is 2 or 3 years away, and the Jazz, they want to win now. So what I decided to do was I decided to improve their bench. And I had them select Nico McMahon. Nico Manning. What can he do for this Jazz team? Well, I think his biggest strength is his ability to create for others on the floor, which I think is huge. Another thing that's pretty good about him is his 3-point shooting stroke. In the NBA, his projected NBA 3-point shot is 362%, which is pretty good and will allow him to be able to space the floor. I really think, at least offensively, he has the talent to become a great combo guard. And defensively, lack of size and height kind of come into play a little bit. He isn't a bad defender per se, but his 6'3" height and 190 pounds, those kind of limit his defensive abilities and his defense ability to improve once he's in the NBA. Which is one of the reasons he slid to the spot. Not exactly slid, but why he is in his spot. That's really it. I do think he could be a high-quality bench player for the Jazz and probably start for them maybe 3 or 4 years from now, and maybe get rid of Mike Conley in the future. But eventually, I do think he'll become a starting NBA player. The Bucks are up next, and a lot of people have them picking a point guard. I don't think that makes much sense, because I think this team is worse. I think this team needs a stretch 4. And I don't necessarily agree with the opinion that they need a point guard, because they do have Eric Bledsoe and they have George Hill, and you got 2 ball handlers and Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton. Even though Giannis plays, I think, at the 4 and Chris Middleton plays at the 3. So you don't really need another ball handler. So I do think that they should take a stretch 4, and I will have them taking Tyler Bey. Tyler Bey, what can he do? One thing he could shoot, his true shooting, is 611%, which is pretty good. And his effective field goal range is 555, which is also pretty good. Another reason I think this is the right pick for the Bucks is his defensive potential. His defense is really good. In fact, he was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, which is pretty impressive. So, his defense is pretty legit. It really seems that the one concern with him is his 3-point shooting. Although in college he shot 419% from 3, the projected NBA 3-point percentage shot is .337, which isn't bad by any means. I mean, it's pretty good. But you're not gonna really have. He's not gonna be a great 3-point shooter or a good 3-point shooter. He's gonna be an okay 3-point shooter, which isn't a bad thing. And I guess the other thing would be age. There's not much improvement for him, I guess. He is 22. Which again, you can still improve once you're 22, but it doesn't look like he's gonna, go to another level, which I guess is why he kind of fell to this spot. Things considered, he will be an effective player for the Bucks if they do select him. And let's go to the Thunder with the next pick. Thunder have the next pick, and I'm going to have them take the guy who has the most promise, because this team is in a rebuild. Billy Donovan left for that reason, because he didn't want to be involved in a rebuild. So, assuming they still trade all their guys and they go full on with this rebuild, not trade all their guys, but trade all their old guys, like Chris Paul and Steven Adams, build around Shai and all that stuff. I'm going to have them taking Jaden Daniels. A quick little summary. This player is basically the best player that's kind of left, or the best. He's the biggest ceiling out of the players left in this draft. Jaden McDaniels. A lot of his positives are based on potential. You have a guy with huge shooting potential who's 6'10" and 6'11" wingspan. Now add in his defensive potential, and this player looks to be potentially a good starter in the NBA. Now, his concern. Your concern is his playmaking. He averaged 3 assists in his lone season at Washington. Also add the fact that he's kind of a little bit skinny for his size. He's around 200 pounds, so he's still got to build into that. I guess those are 2 main concerns. Besides all that, I do think this player has huge potential for the Thunder. And this is kind of the perfect pick, as I've said before, for the Thunder, because they are in a rebuild. I think this is the perfect player for the Thunder to draft. On to the next pick. The Celtics are up next with the 25th pick. And gonna be honest with you, this pick was kind of really easy to make. Just based on the fact that the Celtics, they can't really add another rookie to this squad. Maybe they trade this pick. But this team is pretty loaded as it is. The thing that's kind of annoying for a Celtics fan, or I guess annoying for the Celtics also, is just the fact that they don't really have a tradable contract to go along with this draft pick and the other 2 draft picks, or the other 2 first-round draft picks, to make some kind of move. I don't know who would be available, though. Because this offseason, there isn't really that many marquee players available to trade for, or to sign in free agency. Victor Oladipo is out there. Besides him, there really is no one available. And with that in mind, I just decided to go with the draft and stash option. And I went with the best draft and stash player out there, which is Leonardo Bolimio, who plays for the Barcelona team in the EuroLeague. Dino Ramiro. Why are the Celtics taking him with this pick? Well, he really does seem to be a point guard in a 6'8", 195-pound body, which, could lead to all sorts of trouble for the rest of the NBA in the future. Offensively, he looks to be very good in the pick and roll. Concern offensively would be his shooting. Um, in Barcelona, he shot 200% from three, which isn't good and something he's got to work on. Defensively, he seems to be pretty good. One main negative for him on defense would be that he's sometimes too aggressive, and that leads to mistakes on him on defense. For him on defense. Excuse me. But yeah, he's not coming to the NBA till 2023. That's when his contract with Barcelona expires. So he could be a completely different player when he comes to the NBA. But I do think he'll be a good player when he does come to the NBA in 2 or 3 years from now. New York Knicks are up next, and with them selecting Tyrese Halliburton with the 8th pick, they already have their point guard of the future. And although they probably need to get 2 more guards to fill out that rotation, they do have a need at wing and I guess stretch 4. Not necessarily at power forward, but I do think long term you're going to need a guy who can stretch the floor. If you're going to have Mitch as your long-term center, which you should, because, Mitch's ability to play basketball is really good. And, one thing that makes him a really good basketball player is his ability to play well in the pick-and-roll game. But that's a topic for another video. So I kind of, with them selecting a player who could fill that wing need and who could fill that stretch 4 need potentially, and I have them selecting Vernon Carey Jr. Vernon Carey, what are his strengths? We're going to go defensively first here, switch it up a little bit. Defensively, although he's 6'10", and that's primarily guys who are 6'10", guard centers and guard 5 or 4s, I do think because of his 7 feet wingspan, and his defensive potential, and the way he plays defense, his defensive win shares for him are his defensive rating actually is 88%, and his defensive win share is 0.104. So yeah, he's pretty good defensively, and I think he can guard wings in the NBA at a pretty good level. I wouldn't say at elite level. I think he can guard defense. I think he can guard bigs at an elite level. But I definitely think you can guard wings as well. Offensively, his shooting is pretty good. In college, he shot .381% from 3, and is projected, according to Tankathon, .322% from 3 is a projected 3-point shot. So yeah, it seems like he's going to have a pretty good shot in the NBA and be able to space the floor. Negatives are his carelessness with the ball, and his ability not to be able to, or his ability to create with the ball. Those are his 2 negatives, and those 2 for him I would say are pretty major. Less on the ability to create, but his turnovers are a huge red flag for him, and it's kind of the reason, it is the reason why I have him slipping to this spot. And honestly, if not for the turnover concerns, I would have had him gone to Milwaukee, but because of the turnover concerns, I do have him going to the Knicks at the 27th pick. But with all that being said, I do think he will be a good pick for the Knicks, and I think he will be a good rotational big for them / wing. I do think he could still play the wing position. So yeah, let's go to the Lakers. The NBA champion Lakers are up next with the 27th pick, and the pick I went with here was a wing player because of all the elite offensive players in the Western Conference, and I really do think that you should stack up on 3-and-D players, especially if you are a championship contender, which the Lakers are. So I will have the Lakers selecting Robert Woodward. Robert Woodward. What can he do? Well, this man could shoot the basketball. In college, he shot 429% from three, and I definitely expect that to translate to the NBA. Also, I would add he's perfect. He's a perfect frame to guard wing players in the NBA. A 7'1" wingspan off a 6'7" height. A negative of Woodward is that he's not able to create with the ball, or off the ball for that matter. I guess one minor negative would be that he's not a great defender. He's a good defender, but I still think this is the Lakers pick based off his shooting potential. The Raptors are up next with the 29th pick, and I could see this pick going, a lot of ways, just because they're two bigs besides Siakam are going to free agency this year, Gasol and Ibaka, and you also do have Van Vliet who's going to free agency, and you don't know if you're going to be able to re-sign him, and also Lowry's getting up there in age, and also he's on a 1-year deal, so, you can really go a lot of ways with this pick besides getting a wing player, because they're pretty set there. They got Norman Powell for a year, and he's got a player option they'll probably accept. And you got OG Nobi for another year. But you could really do this. You could really have this pick go multiple ways. And I'm just gonna go with best player that is left on the board at this point, and that's why they'll be selecting Theo Medallion. Theo Medallion. What can he do for this Raptors team? Well, offensively, I think he's really good. Especially as a point guard, his passing ability and his ability to create is the reason the Raptors are selecting with this pick. A negative would be his defense needs some work, particularly his on-ball defense. But I do think he can improve that. And I do think due to his offensive potential, he will be a good pick for the Raptors. Let's have the 30th pick in the first round, which is the last pick in the first round. And I kind of went with a similar strategy with the 25th pick where they picked a draft and stash guy. There weren't that many great draft and stash guys left that were worthy of the last spot in the first round. So I went with Killian Tittle, which I'll kind of get into in just a second, but he's a very kind of risky prospect just because of his injury history. But if he is able to somehow overcome his injury issues, which are a big concern for him, he could be a very good center who could space the floor for them, and could probably will be, if he's able to stay healthy, a playoff caliber starting center. Killian Tittle. What are his positives and what are his negatives? Well, I think his one huge negative is injury concern. As I've already said. At Gonzaga, he only played 30% of his minutes, he only played 30% of his minutes at Gonzaga due to injuries. And you got to remember, he played there 4 years. Yeah, he's a senior now. So, yeah, injuries are a concern. But let's get into the positives. So, his three-point shot is pretty good. In the NBA, it's projected he's going to shoot a 360% shot, or .360% from three, which is pretty good. In college, it was .391%, .400% from three, which is pretty lethal. And that's probably that will translate to the NBA. Also, inside game is pretty good. If you catch him on a post up, it will probably work. He's also a good pick and roll guy, especially as a pick and pop guy because of that 3-point shot. Now, here's another weakness, but it's a little bit of a minor weakness. His defense. The problem that he's gonna have is, does he have the athleticism to keep up with NBA opponents? I'm not sure if it's there. But again, that's more in the minor category when it comes to concerns about him. The major concern is his health. And if he's able to stay healthy, he could be an NBA starter or a NBA rotational piece on a championship team. And that's pretty good for the 30th pick. And this pick, in summary, this is kind of a little bit more of a risky pick. But because the Celtics do have a lot of picks, they're able to take a risky pick here, and they will take Untitled. With the end of the first round in my mock draft, this seems like a good time to end the video. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments.